Should I call you Max or Maximilian or
You can call me Maximilian only when I'm,
in
when
trouble or
my
something?
mom screamed at me, and you made something wrong, that it is Maximilian.
Okay. Oh, here we go then. Okay. Hi, Max. Thank you for coming to Forever Motoring today.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's nice to see you. I heard it's very hot in Berlin where you are now.
Yeah, but we won't complain because summers are super nice in Berlin, and the winters are very long, so I'm happy for some long sunny days.
That's true. Berlin is one of the best places to be in the summer.
Yeah, we do miss the ocean, so if we could
Yeah,
add
that's
that,
true.
then it
But
would be
everyone's
like,
so happy and on the out in the parks and at the cafes, and it has such a beautiful spirit in the parks, at the lakes.
yeah, it's a green city. We're definitely happy that so there are so many trees in the city, and and as a native, I mean, I've never lived somewhere else because I think it's a nice base to explore the world, and the living is quite affordable here.
So you grew up in Berlin. You're born in Berlin.
Yes, I grew up in the eastern part of Berlin in 1985, and stayed here.
Wow, right before big changes came.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, you don't really recognize the big change. For
Yeah.
me, I saw the change within the car scene. So no more two-stroke cars, so more cars from West Germany. And there I recognized as a kid, okay, something has changed here dramatically.
Oh, wow, you actually remember that? You must have been pretty small, but
I do have some very like a deep saved childhood memories. I definitely do remember these times.
well, maybe we'll explore them a little bit. I usually ask the guests to tell me about some moment in their life that they remember being moved from your childhood or from yesterday. It doesn't matter, but something related to motoring that moved you.
I think it was a family trip to the Baltic Sea, and I was probably like 7 years old, and my dad gave me 5 Deutsche Mark back then, and he said, "Okay, now you can buy any magazine you want at the gas station." And I went for a classic American car magazine called Chrome and Flames in Germany.
Oh, wow,
And
great title.
yeah, and this was probably the moment where the spark was set to rethink the whole idea of mobility, that you don't have to drive a regular station wagon, and there are plenty more different cars and car modding and whatsoever. So this is probably the moment which was the beginning for me personally.
What sort of car were you in with your family back then? Do you?
We our first car was a Wartburg, like a two-stroke station wagon, and frog green from the 80s, and we got it right after the fall of the wall. And then we had Opel Rekord, Volkswagen Passat station wagons, very, let's say, practical cars. So there is absolutely no passion for classic cars or motorcycles or whatsoever within my whole family. So yeah, so there was no kind of how do you say, inspiration from the family side of things.
Was your dad surprised when you came back with the Chrome and Flame or whatever it was called, the magazine?
Not really. I mean, I think we've all been into toys and
Right.
Hot Wheels and stuff. So I think he felt, okay, this is natural. But I also was reading 1 or 2 years later, like heavy books on Stalingrad and World War II history, which is like kind of
Whoa.
unusual in that age. But I don't think that he was surprised.
Okay. You were interested in a lot of things. Sounds like
Um,
curious. Still
I mean,
curious.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, curiosity definitely is a great thing to have, and I'm super grateful for a passion. I found something that I'm into, but I could also every day switch it to something else. So maybe if at some point in the future no motorcycles, no cars whatsoever is allowed, there are restrictions, I could also see myself as a carpenter, or I don't know, selling little aquariums or whatsoever. And I think that's something that is nice to have, so that you can adapt to what's ahead of us.
Adaptability, flexibility can go a long way in terms of how you feel and how you experience your day in general. Did you have to learn that, or was that something you didn't have to learn? You just sort of knew?
I think the passion one I knew all the way, but creating a job universe around it is kind of the biggest challenge. So if you want to make a living, chasing a dream, building a network, dealing with setbacks. So I initially studied graphic design because I wanted to work at a car magazine, which is called Motorraver, that was founded in Hamburg, an independent car magazine. And so there, my maybe creative talents given from my mom, I could use and then mix it with car culture. And yeah, but there the magazine wasn't continued, so I had to adapt, and you have to change jobs from time to time. And but the bigger picture always like sent me in the right direction. And yeah, basically the network today grew naturally out of that passion, because you meet like-minded people along the way, which is super nice. And in the end, it's not only about cars and motorcycles and electric mobility and whatsoever, but about the people. So it's the social aspect of it.
That's for sure. And that says a lot about what you're doing now with Craftwork and Reload, which we'll get to. But what was Motor Raver? Did you help start it? It's a great title for a magazine, but I'm not sure if people in the States will know what it is.
So it was founded in 1999. So I was way too young back then.
Oh, wow.
And I spent my teenage years really sucking it all in from the magazines. They were having, I think, quarterly issues. And yeah, they rethought the whole idea of how to present car culture in the first place. So they switched to completely different paper. They had new ideas in graphic design. They had hilariously funny stories in it, and it was inspired by the Gearhead magazine.
Okay.
And yeah, and for me, it was amongst the German magazine scenery like a complete standout. And it was on the desk of all the creative directors in the early 2000s. And yeah, it was super inspiring. So they had topics with hot rods, muscle cars, vintage German cars from the 60s and 70s. And they also modded these cars. So basically, it's a mix of punk rock and car culture.
Oh, wow.
So we're the first in Germany to paint the cars matte black, put flames on it. So a little bit of hot rodding, but with cars in the 90s. And yeah, they rethought the whole idea. And Motorraver is, I think, a cool name. And it all started as a little club because the guys who founded the magazine all grew up out of Hamburg. So they had these parking lot raves, and they were just
Oh,
like
well, that's great.
a dozen of cars next to the club, parked on the parking lot, all had the windows down. There was music playing. There were beer cans throwing around. And so this all started out of that. And then they said, okay, we're basically motor ravers. So yeah, and it was a super influential on my life, that magazine. And now I'm friends with the editor-in-chief back then. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah,
Still in
that's
touch.
really interesting. Does Hamburg have a certain culture of cars? Are there different cultures, car cultures like in Germany?
I think yes. So in Hamburg, we call it Mopa cities. So because of the big port,
Mhm.
they always had the coolest muscle cars, even in the 90s. There were Chargers, Roadrunners, whatever in the city. So this is definitely a muscle car city. Then we also have the western part at Ruhrpott, which has also like a very thriving car culture, which is basically based around the Opel Manta and, of course, the Volkswagen Golf. So all the tuning stuff in the 80s that was super popular back then, the white bodies with
Mhm.
airbrush and all that kind of stuff. D&W catalog was the probably the most printed car part catalog back then. And Munich is a little bit more snobby, and Berlin, because of the yeah, kind of special situations as an island in the former before the wall came down, there was, or there still is, a growing car culture, but the city is so big, we don't have the only city center. So there
Mhm.
are amazing cars here, but it's always a challenge to get like a community together in Berlin, which luckily changed within the last 3 years, because at Craftwerk we started the Espresso GT, which is a monthly cars and coffee during summer. And there all the different types of classic cars and collector cars meet. Yeah, but I definitely would say Hamburg, more American cars, for sure.
What's interesting about Kraftwerk doing this, we talked to the Ace Cafe, the founder of the Ace Cafe, so it makes me think of that a little.
Yeah, it's basically an adaptation of the classic Cars and Coffee in California. So,
Okay.
but we start a little later. So, getting Berliners off the couch on a Sunday morning is quite hard. So, my co-founders said I'm completely crazy, but I thought, hey, let's give it a try. So, from 9 to 11 in the morning, we just open the parking lot, and we have great coffee and some fresh croissants, and that's what people need. And yeah, they have great talks, and the vibe is super friendly, and the variety in cars is amazing. So there's a let's say a Testarossa park next to a Citroën 2 Chevaux and a muscle car hot rod. So all kinds of styles, JDM cars, and bringing all these people together is, yeah, very nice feeling.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That Berlin has a place like that now. But how did you get to creating Kraftwerk? And so you had obviously you were interested in automobiles when you were a child, and where did the design part come? You mentioned your mom. Was she a big influence in terms of art and thinking about how things are made?
Yes, I mean, she studied textile pattern design
Oh, wow.
in Weißensee, in a very well-renowned university. But she never worked in a job, but she was always super talented at drawing. She did like little theater things in the school and stuff like that. So she was always very good at it and very creative. And my grandma as well. We were always like building things for birthdays and stuff. And the whole Craftwork idea, I mean, there are two hearts beating in my chest. So one is for motorcycles, one is for cars, and it switches from time to time. So 1 year I'm more into the classic cars, and the other year I'm more into the motorcycles. And the Craftwork community garage started out of a smaller community garage. I had to leave my old workshop where I was with two other guys because of the contract, and yeah, basically got a shelter in the community garage in Berlin-Kreuzberg. And we had 200 square meters with 30 members, and it was packed immediately. And there I recognized for the first time, hey, it's actually cool to share tools, share knowledge, have a good laugh. And also you often need a hand when you work on your motorcycle. And yeah, from this crowd, there was a small group who thought, okay, maybe there is an idea to start a business around it. And the vision was always to have a workshop, a glass wall, and to have a nice coffee and to look into a workshop. And now we've created that. And yeah, it's a super interesting project.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful space. It seems to be a really special vibe in that place. It seems like
Yeah.
such a natural space. Can you design that, or is it more about letting the space sort of become what it wants to become? I mean, I guess I'm thinking about the tension between trying to design a space like that and letting that space just become what it is.
It is definitely a process. I mean, of course, we had an idea how the place could look like, but when you have like an empty hall, an empty warehouse of 900 square meters, and then you think, okay, how are we ever going to be able to fill that? So that's thing number
Yeah.
one. And then we had to just start step by step. And the most beautiful rooms right now, they were the most ugly ones in the beginning. So there was graffiti on the walls. We didn't have proper doors, no windows, no electricity, no heating system, no kitchen, nothing. And so I brought a lot of like stuff from my old workshop, and also, you know, collectible art. And through the month, everyone brought a little bit. So another guy was joining us, and his place, he had to leave it, and so he brought like some tools and, you know, some storage, like vintage storage shelves. And so it grew organically. But I think in the end, you can build the coolest place you want, but it's the people that really fill it with life. So Kraftwerk wouldn't be a cool vibing place without the people. It sounds super cheesy, but when you just walk through it and it's empty, it's just an empty warehouse basically with a lot of motorcycles.
I guess the people bring their own design there, so you sort of sense that too. You already probably knew all of these people or a lot of them, but new people come in too. But there's already some kind of social atmosphere before you even build the place, I guess.
Yeah, and funny, it's I think more than 80% of the people we didn't know in the first place. So they
Wow.
are like newly recruited members. Right now, I think we have 105 members from 18 different nations.
Wow.
And that's yeah, again, a social project at its core, and it's all glued together by the passion for motorcycles and scooters and mopeds and stuff. Yeah, but I was a little bit responsible for the design of the rooms. But luckily in our team, we have Michael, who is an architect. So he planned the whole place. He knew, where to put like toilets, where are the ways, which kind of rooms we need. And it took us almost 3 years to find that place because, of course, it's not easy to find an affordable space. And in the first place, we thought too big, but now we're happy that we have that space in total.
Yeah, it's amazing. You said it's 900
Yeah,
square
900
meters.
square meters.
Yeah, that's a
Probably
huge
the
space
biggest.
in Berlin.
Yeah, it's in the eastern part, right outside the inner city circle.
Oh,
So it's actually
very
like
convenient.
10 minutes from the hip neighborhoods, Friedrichshain, Prenzlauer Berg, Pankow. So it's really accessible. Let's say for the eastern part of the city. For the western, they have to drive a little longer. But we also have members who come all the way from Potsdam because they think, okay, the place is special, and they drive for an hour there, which is amazing.
I really love that, and I love this. It seems like there's a mixing or a coming together of a lot of different cultures and kinds of people. Berlin has a really particular spirit, and I've heard that sometimes there's a lot of love of cars, and then there can also be kind of a hate of cars too, and also this kind of world of art and design, and then like the garage culture. Are those all the same people that have you found? Is it wrong to even think that those are separate groups?
I don't really think there are separate groups. I mean, of course, car people are definitely different than motorcycle people, for sure. But I think since the place has such a positive vibe, there's not really attention. Critical is, of course, keeping everything in order. So we have a guy from, let's say, Tunisia, who's like an airplane mechanic, and he has a different idea of what's a good order for tools and keeping everything in place. And
Mm-hmm.
then they have the, let's say, the German crowd who, learned at Volkswagen, and they had to leave the space much cleaner than they found when they entered the garage. So
Right.
this is like a, let's say, tricky situation, like in a big when you live together in a big group with people, or you share an office, and it doesn't matter if supermodels work there in the kitchen, there's always like a big note, okay, put your dirty dishes in the dishwasher and stuff like that. So that's the, let's say, the most tricky part, I think. And also, of course, expectation management. In the first month, we didn't have the money to afford all the tools, so the whole set of tools was just organically growing. But so far, it's basically a representation of society. So we have all kinds of people there, not the typical biker, with a leather vest and a long beard,
Mm.
but from vets to surgeons to pilots, it's all there. Carpenters, everyone's there, basically represented.
I love that. It's such a nice thing that it works at all. What is this DIY kind of culture like? Does everyone have to contribute tools, or do you just come in and then you just get the free use of everyone's tools, or are there certain rules about it?
We have the tools, so professional tools, and everyone is allowed to use it. And
Okay.
if you need special tools for your bike, you just bring them. And of course, some stuff that you always need, like cable ties and so on. We have everything there. And also, for example, brake cleaner was always an issue in the old
Mm.
workshop. So everyone was using the cans, and then when you needed it yourself, they were all gone. So we have like now a big one where everyone can serve themselves. And yeah, but basically we set up the room, we have the professional tools, and then you pay a monthly fee. You can enter the workshop 24/7, and we record it with an ID chip. And yeah, and then you're basically free to do basically what you want, except spray painting your bike on the inside. So we don't have a spray booth there, which is unfortunately way too expensive.
Yeah, that would take a lot. Um, how did we didn't quite get into your design career, but you also worked for Gestalt, right? You had a
Yes.
different sort of career, but it was still connected to motorcycling and automobiles. I guess that's
Uh,
going on from the motor raver.
Yes, exactly. So Motorway was like the first spark. So I studied graphic design, didn't finish university. So I stopped after, I think in the third semester, quit there, started working for Vice magazine in Berlin with a very OG crew. We've been, I think, 8 people in the early 2000s.
Oh wow,
Then
that was
I
right when it
switched.
launched, right? Or
Yes,
there.
so and I think at the biggest stage they had like 200 people working there.
Mm.
Amazing. But then I moved on to working as a freelance graphic designer, but it wasn't really making me happy. Then I met Flake from Rammstein, the keyboarder, and at a hot rod show. And I asked him, "Hey, you have a classic car rental. Do you need someone to work there?" And then he said, "Yeah, you should just swing by and say hello." And I did. And then I worked there for 2 years, being responsible for 96 classic cars at the age of 24. So that was the dream job. It was, of course, very much season oriented, but I was able to work on film sets, organize road books and design road books for incentive events. And we had all types of cars. So like Messerschmitt two-stroke cabin scooters, to Russian state limousines, to Ford Mustangs, Jaguar E-types. And I was able to drive a lot of these cars, learn a lot about them, how to drive them, what's special. And so I really got the practical part of the classic car thing. And
It's
then I
like a
also
school within itself.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
really a unique space.
absolutely. And the office was at now it's called Classic Remise,
Ah, okay.
a very special place in Berlin for classic car enthusiasts. But after 2 years, I recognized, okay, there's not, you can't develop yourself. So it's always the same work. So I had to quit there and started the career as a graphic designer again, worked for an online magazine in fashion. That was really funny for a couple of years. And then I quit there as well. And yeah, on a trip to Cape Town, I got a call from Gestalten. I met the publisher before at Wheels and Waves, and I was also helping
Mm.
them to launch the first book, The Ride. And yeah, then he
Oh
asked
yeah.
me if I would be interested to join the company as an editor for The Ride Second Gear. And I said, yeah, yeah. Okay, but it was like fully employed or not. And then I was, okay, shit, I have to cancel or pause my freelancer career and worked successfully at Gestalten for 4 years, made 10 books. It was an amazing experience. And I also could, I mean, day in, day out, I could completely work with my passion there and bring it all in and all the knowledge that I gained. And yeah, it was very, very an interesting time.
Did you work only on books that were of subjects that you cared about, like cars or the ride, motorcycles, or was it all kinds of things?
We've been four very specific editors back then. So one for
Mm-hmm.
architecture, one for graphic design, and so on. And my part was the mobility theme. So everything that moved basically. There were topics that I'm not an expert in at all, but we had co-editors for surf books, for example, or I had
Mm-hmm.
also to work myself into the whole bicycle scene. But it's definitely doable. And the medium book is always a nice door opener. So people really seem to like the idea that they put content in the book which stays a little bit longer than an Instagram post. So yeah, it was really a very positive thing to ring people up and say, okay, hey, we're working on this book. Do you want to participate? That was cool. But I wasn't working on car and motorcycle related books all the time. So we had a meeting with the publisher every 6 months. And I sat down with him and said, okay, I have three ideas, two for car and motorcycle books, and then there's a special one. And he said, okay, what's the special one? I said, fly fishing. And he said, okay, this is surprising, but I was so into it. And then he said, yeah, give it a try, give it a little first research. And then I dived completely into the world of crazy fly fishing people. And was actually amongst the drive and the ride And fast forward, like probably my most popular book and
The
the
fly
work
fishing one.
was fun. Yeah, The Fly Fisher. Yeah.
Are you a fly fisher?
No, I
You were just fascinated by it.
absolutely. So I did fish when I was a kid, but yeah, the art of fly fishing had something extremely satisfying and all the artworks around it. And yeah, so I learned a lot. And I still, we had two very nerdy co-editors. And they said, yeah, you definitely need to come to our place and we teach you how to swing a fly fishing rod. So maybe I'll do that. But in the end, you always have to maybe decide for one hobby instead of going for 10 different ones. And yeah, that's the main problem, time and resources.
Yes, it sounds like you do move with your passion though. So it's really like your passion is motivating a lot of the work you do. So I guess is that why when you feel like you've explored something fully in that kind of form, you move on to the next thing? Is it still
Yes.
this curiosity theme? It's passion and curiosity, but then there seems to be, yeah, you want to grow too or something.
Yes, and always I think I'm working on new, let's say, skill sets. So I didn't know how to do books, so I, let myself fall into the idea. Okay, now you create some books, and then you work on that for 3, 4 years. And my rhythm is usually 3 years, and then I try to switch something. And yeah, starting a place like Craftwerk that started just after I quit at the publishing house and. But in the end, I think within all the years, you get used to the roller coaster ride of being a freelancer. And okay, there are times which are a little bit tougher, but then you also, if you're still moving, even when it's kind of hard, there are always doors opening up, and then new opportunities came up. So now I'm kind of really relaxed about everything. So I like to have like 2 or 3 different jobs I'm working on and just work 2 days here, 3 days there, sometimes on the weekends. And so this gives a kind of, yeah, a good feel that there is some kind of security, which is of course nowadays nowhere. But if you think you're ready with a chapter, then I definitely move on. And sometimes it's also a problem because I'm very enthusiastic and energetic when it comes to a new topic, like creating a festival about reload land, creating a festival about electric mobility and electric motorcycles and so on, that you miss out on maybe the jobs that pay the rent. So it's like sometimes you're too fast for, let's say, the grown up side of things.
Yes, but it sounds like you're still really engaged and you probably wake up in the morning motivated in the right ways, even when it's challenging, versus just going the way that's supposedly safe. But like you said, you can't always count on that either.
Yes, absolutely. But you also have to be very well aware that a lot of energy burns a lot of energy, and
Mm-hmm.
you definitely have to pause in between. So that's what I also had to learn. Even though you don't really recognize it, you definitely have to keep some time off in between. But that's also another challenge to really set up holidays and all that kind of stuff and don't look into emails and just be somewhere else and let's say the creative mind rest for a couple of days and then start all over again.
Yeah, that's so true because when you are doing stuff out of passion, when it's really your passion, then you can put so much into it and you realize how much you can get done when you put so much into it. So you feel like you can take on everything, but there really is such a thing as overdoing it. And also, yeah, getting these expectations where it's expected somehow, which can kind of change your motivation and passion. It's hard to find that balance. I think that's kind of part of growing up too, is like figuring out how to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and even your finances and all of that while also still flowing with this passion.
Yeah, I'm very shitty with finances, so I can't save money. So that's why I also buy projects all the time and then building them up, and then the time is running. But that's also probably, yeah, the creative mind that hates order with
Yeah,
taxation, all that kind of
there's
stuff.
something motivating about that, even in a
Yeah,
way. It sounds like you're sort of in the present moment. You're not too worried. You're trying, yeah, that's
yeah, yeah.
where you're trying to live.
Yes, and I just came back from an amazing motorcycle trip across the Iberian Peninsula. What it's called? Peninsula.
Yeah, peninsula.
And I spent 7 days with the crew around El Solitario, riding off-road from Galicia down to the Atlantic Ocean, Portugal and Spain. And that was like a real,
Oh.
okay, break. So I'm still, that's why I probably sound so positive, because it was an amazing experience on two
So you did that after you had, we're going to talk about Reload Land, but that was kind of, did that come after you just needed, after this huge kind of event? And that I'm sure it took a lot of energy. We'll talk about it in a second, but did you then need that trip? Was it like therapy or recovery or,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So it was very challenging for the body. So we made like I think between 1,500 and 1,700 kilometers in 7 days, all
Wow.
off-road.
What were you
And
riding? Sorry.
I bought a Honda XR250
Okay.
Baja from 97, and but the bike broke down on the third day, and then I jumped on a couple other bikes that were free, and yeah, I didn't have any enduro or off-road experience, so I was a little bit scared. But then on the other end, okay, you just let yourself fall into the adventure and then go with the flow and day by day, and yeah, and it was an amazing crew, super helpful, super friendly, great organization, great food, amazing scenery. So it was very, very special, and it kind of brought back the passion to be on a motorcycle for more than just commuting in the city.
Yeah, it sounds like a dream. What do you mean there was a crew? Was it, what kind of trip was it?
It was
Just,
organized by the El Solitario crew, which are based in Spain, in Galicia.
wow.
And we've been, I think, 40 people in total. So we had a road crew with, I think, 15 people on the road, and the other crew members rode all off-road. 200 to 300 kilometers a day, and also international crowds, also motorcycle scene from 13 different nations, from California, from Tokyo, and yeah, so I don't know. The Vincent Pratt was also there, the co-founder of Wheels and Waves, and so
Okay.
that's kind of the old school crew there.
I see. Wow. I want to talk about Reload Land a little bit. But first, when did you become interested in electric or even the bigger themes around electric? Has that always been there, or was there a conversion moment of some kind?
I worked on the book The Current, which was actually the last
Mm,
book I worked on at Gestalten. So that was kind of interesting during the research. Okay, there is something going on there. So there are new
mhm.
companies coming up. I think a cake was probably from the outside the most attractive one, where
The
you
one on the
thought
cover?
this is exactly.
Oh,
So
so beautiful.
and yeah, and at Craftwerk, we've been the first dealer actually for cake bikes in Berlin.
Wow.
And of course, I think the first time I sat on a electric two-wheeled vehicle was with the rental scooters in Berlin, actually. So these gorgeos
Hmm.
scooters from Taiwan, I think they were the first encounter with electric mobility on two wheels. And yeah, and from that moment on, I thought, okay, this is interesting. And I kind of missed cool motorcycle events. And I thought, okay, maybe there's an idea to create something new. So I was looking left and right and thought, okay, there's no one doing a cool electric motorcycle festival. And then I thought, okay, maybe I need to do it. I just need to go for it. And since I had Craftwork as a platform and as a location and the team there, I thought, okay, you're not alone, so you could pull it off. And then, yeah, the work started. So I think the idea is 4 years old, and last year we had the first edition.
Was it the first one in Europe, the first electric motorcycle festival?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I mean, there are, of course, classic trade shows out there, the big ones like EICMA and so on, but they're
Hmm.
all mixed. And we had
Hmm.
the idea to mix this whole custom motorcycle scenes where our roots are with, yeah, the biggest variety possible in electric motorcycles that you can ride today. So starting small from electric bicycles all the way up through moped scooters and then up to 1,000 Newton meter Verge, for example, last year from Finland.
So it was really about
Surprising,
electric movement.
surprising people. Yes, for sure. And I think what really started the idea, I was kind of bored of all these heritage festivals and people wearing Red Wings and you listening to rock
Mm-hmm.
and roll. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally like electronic music, so I thought, okay, that would be cool to have like electronic music played on an electric motorcycle festival and put your personal stamp on an event, and then hopefully check that people like the vibe, and yeah, so also surprise people. So we even surprised a lot of members from the Craftwerk community which came to the festival, and they were like, okay, we didn't even know that there are so many brands and new manufacturers are out there that you can actually buy and test ride. And after all, the idea is to really create a movement and a lifestyle around it, because I think when you present electric mobility, you have the only chance to build a lifestyle around it, because you have the old discussion about sound and all that kind of stuff. So you have to find different ways to get people excited.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's funny how we don't know what's around us until someone near us introduces us to it. I mean, that all these things are available already, but even people sort of close to that subject wouldn't really know about it unless you're looking for it. Those shifts can happen fast though, once that starts spreading.
I mean, since we are talking about it now, probably the algorithm will do its magic and you will get like a lot of ads for electric motorcycles now.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if lifestyle changes also work like that.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. But aren't you also doing something with an agency in Hamburg about different e-fuels or fossil free or
Yes.
yeah. What's that about? Is that connected at all to
It's
any
not
of this?
connected to the festival. So the festival is a whole different company. But yes, I'm also co-founder at Super Plus Media, it's called, in Hamburg. And we are a content agency working for mobile.de at the moment, the biggest second-hand car platform. And yeah, before that, in the first years, we were working in the field of synthetic and fossil-free fuels. And that was really interesting. So we created the biggest news platform in Germany, and yeah, also educated people on, okay, what's possible. If you speak to someone on the street, I think it was 3 years ago, and you tell them, okay, there's the possibility to create fuel out of air and water, they just look at you and think you're completely crazy.
Mm.
But then if you explain the whole process around it and what's possible, and yes, so that was super interesting, because all the people working at the agency are also very much passion driven. So all petrol heads.
Mm-hmm.
Our DOP is a former race engine engineer, and so it's very much starting out of, yeah, a personal interest. And we thought, okay, e-fuels, it's called in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do something about this, and we need to educate people and maybe create some kind of pressure on politics that we are hopefully be able to put it in our classic cars or ICE cars. And then we basically found a company that said, okay, yeah, we want to do that. It's like a collective of different gas station companies and so on, middle-sized ones and not the big ones. But they're very much more, let's say, movable. And so they said, yes, we're going to do that. And then we basically dived into the whole scene. I interviewed some professors at university, scientists. We've been to basically all refineries in Germany, and yeah, had a very close look behind the scene, what's going on with the whole energy transition in Germany. And it's very interesting what's possible, what's not possible, what's scalable, and where are the different let's say problems within politics and European Union and whatsoever. So it's probably a topic for another podcast. So the
Yeah,
whole fossil
actually, it's
fuel
huge.
thing.
But it's
Yeah.
so interesting, and it seems that a lot changed in terms of policy and or even awareness. Probably was that connected to this news source that you're talking about?
I think it had a fair share for sure, but it also had some kind of pressure, because it all had to be on the agenda in the European Commission and the
Mm-hmm.
Parliament. So at some point, we were happy and surprised that the term e-fuel popped up at the news on the national TV. But of course, the discussion also around is very hot. So you have the the hardcore electric mobility fans, and then you have the hardcore ICE fans, and everyone is throwing arguments, but it's only the black and white discussion. And I personally don't really like that, because I think you have to look into different technologies, and in the end, it's about to save the planet. And but that's we can talk about this probably for hours. Okay, what's sustainable? Is it sustainable? Do I have to feel bad that I have a 66 Dodge station wagon, which I still drive in summer? Or is my neighbor much more eco-friendly because he bought like a new Toyota hybrid? And so that's very interesting, because I think it's also classic cars driven with fossil-free fuels is also kind of the let's say, the solution to be sustainable and still maintain the hobby and the passion without feeling too bad about it. But in the end, we now know that the amount of 100% synthetic fuels are needed in big vessels, in airplanes, and also, of course, the steel industry, for example. So green hydrogen is extremely important there. And for individual cars, I think there's not much left at the moment. So, but we don't know where we are in like 20, 30 years.
Right. And there's so many billions of ICEs out there that, I mean, even just for transitioning or something is needed. But it also seems like, as you were saying, it's a bit strange to think of either or always.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, again, the big question, okay, what's affordable and what keeps society together? So, of course, individual transport is a luxury of freedom. But in the end, the numbers, there are billions of regular ICE powered cars out there. And for example, in Kazakhstan, I think they have 3 charging points. So even in Germany, we're still behind the pace that we would need. And as a country itself, we always are dependent on other energy suppliers. So we always had to import energy. So it's a very complicated topic. We can dive into politics, society, and yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll save
super
that for another
interesting.
time because
Yeah,
there's so much there, and I don't want to
yeah,
keep
and
you too long. But yeah,
it's very
that would be
interesting.
really interesting to get into all the specifics there.
Absolutely. What's super interesting that, for example, countries like Namibia, who don't have natural oil resources, can actually start to produce green hydrogen and sell it, because they have a lot of renewable energies like wind and sun power. So it can completely also change the economics within countries that are not blessed with oil or other resources. So a very interesting topic. And I'm personally also absolutely for both ways. So I like the electric mobility in urban environments, but I also like to go in my classic car for holidays. I drive the 60s wagon to Italy, and it just works because you can repair it and all the kind of stuff. So whatever is best. And of course, in the end, we in the Western world, we need to consume less and buy less and use less oil and all the kind of stuff. So who are we to judge, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think opening up the space and trying to find more than just one solution is actually a good idea too. Over time, we need electric, but it also is going to have issues. So exploring the space of what's possible, and like even thinking of things we don't think are possible yet sounds exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to speak to a farmer who is starting his corn harvester 2 times a year, and he will laugh at you and he says, yeah, my machine needs 200-liter diesel an
Mm.
hour. So
Oh
you can't
God.
do it with an electric solution. So
Yes.
um,
And we
every
just don't
pro
think
and
about all
cons.
those other alternate. We don't understand how many different kinds of lives and uses already exist for these fuels.
Yeah, but science is amazing. So there are so many passionate people working in that field, and it has a lot of pros, the synthetic fuels. But yeah, it's, as said, it's a resource issue. You have to build these whole big powerhouses, and it's in the end the amount of what's needed worldwide is just not enough. So even with the transformation, it will still take a couple of decades to get there.
What is this news source, by the way?
It's
Okay.
called fueltoday.com. I think it should be on it still.
Okay. Can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Or eFuel Alliance as well. So that's another platform, but more lobbyist and politic related.
Okay.
where you can get like the latest news.
Okay. It sounds like you've had a lot of interaction with different cultures and that's part of your daily work too. I just wonder if you've thought much about that, the journey and going to new places. And is that important for you, or did that just kind of happen as a result of all this? Or
I think it kind of happened naturally. So in my early 20s, I thought, okay, I just keep my money together and just spend it on my car because I don't really need to go to other places or spend that much money on traveling. Which changed dramatically with my first girlfriend, who often went to Sydney and to New York. And she took me to New York. And yeah, after that trip, it really opened my eyes because you're just yeah, you're investing in memories, and yeah, that's what you can keep. And yeah, and I really enjoy traveling, but yeah, in the end it's also all a resource thing. Now you have an event space and then and a community garage, so you have to also be a little bit static here and there, but traveling is just amazing to open your horizon. And I think the biggest step was traveling to Japan. So I never experienced such a positive cultural impact. Of course, it's very special, and it's also, yeah, it has its issues, but it was again like you know, arriving there as a little kid and you know, just observing every daily situation there, which is just so special for us.
yes, definitely a very different way to move in general. The
Yeah.
arrangement of everything and the feeling of the movement there. There is more of this flow. It reminds me of your work in a way, but I can't figure out why. Or what we've been talking about. Have you thought about what it is about Japan that speaks to you?
I think, I mean, I've been to mostly Tokyo and Yokohama, so the big cities.
Hmm.
And I think it's just it feels like you travel to the future. So Berlin is kind of flat, and we don't have high buildings here. And there, everything is just so well organized. And even with the density of 37 million people living there, it still feels kind of working and even a little bit in balance with nature. And the city is not even loud. So I was super surprised by that. And then, of course, yeah, the way they really deal with daily situations. So I don't know, construction work sites, for example, so that you have one guy, you know, waving with a little beginning, and then at the end, another guy waving and saying sorry that we have to work here on the roads. It's just these funny situations, and then of course their very special passion for different cultures, so they're their own, but also when they adapt cultures, for example, lowrider cars or hot rodding or vintage Harley Davidson motorcycles, they just go in 120% and they don't stop until they reach that level of perfection. And this is very, very fascinating. And I don't know if, I mean, it's also a cliche, but if it's maybe also a German thing to thrive for perfection and engineering and all that kind of thing. So that maybe that goes along the way. But I think the Germans are much more lazy in comparison to the Japanese folks.
It makes sense what you say, though. This forward facing kind of future or present future oriented rather than like past kind of fits.
I mean, they celebrate both, right? I mean,
Mm.
they really save their and keep the traditions, but also like super techy, sometimes overdoing things. But since I just been to Japan 2 times, I'm also not an expert. So
Hmm. Well, I
just
guess the
my
contrast is
personal,
what's
just
interesting
my
too.
personal impressions. I was pumped with energy and excitement, and I definitely want to go back to just, yeah, observe. And also, uh, being kind of an introvert, I think it's also nice that it's not loud. People are polite. No one is bumping into you on the street. If you leave your camera somewhere in public, no one will steal it and stuff like that. So that's amazing.
Last, I do want to ask you about your flat track racing. You do race too, right? Sometimes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And when did that start?
That started in, I think, 2013 or 14. And I've been to that fun race Dirtquake in
Okay.
the UK, organized by Sideburn magazine. And it's basically, yeah, an event, 2 days racing on a speedway track. And it has had the inappropriate road bike class. So yeah, you could basically ride what you brung. So yeah, I just brought a CB200, a small bike, not very powerful, and I just joined in very spontaneously. Drove over, and I never thought riding in circles, all the way to the left, that it would make so much fun. And yeah, then I uh, raced the little one a little longer, but then I thought, okay, having the weakest bike in the pits is not an excuse for being in the middle field. So I built a proper flat track bike, and
You built it?
yeah, I
Oh,
built a Honda SLR 650 single cylinder bike, which is specifically built for the Thunderbike class. So it's 500cc and more. And yeah, I always like the look the most, and I got the bike really cheap. And so I'm still riding that bike. It's way too heavy because it still has the original frame, and
oh,
yeah, so the engine is not tuned, just a different carburetor. But it's a lot of fun, and in the end, it's also, let's say, a family circus traveling around. So we have the crowd race series in Germany. We have 3 to 4 races each year. And last year I stopped due to the festival because I didn't want to risk any injuries right before getting the festival done.
yeah.
This year, all the races are now starting end of this month. And then, yeah, I will dive into it again, and then meet all the friends again. It's a dirty hobby, but it's a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a cool crowd.
That kind of brings up this idea of community again. And you definitely have a lot of really interesting communities or groups of people. I don't know what kind of word you would say to describe it. Over your life, you've been part of really special kind of groups. But is motoring, is that like the, does that connect to community for you when you think about this word motoring or like rolling movement? We talked about journey a little bit too. Do you think of it as solitary or is it this community at the same time? Both? Have you thought, I don't know, what does that bring up for you as I mumble all these things?
I think, yeah, first of all, I'm super grateful for all the community that's basically is built around these projects and the friend circle. And I think motoring brings people together, and either you're moving or even if it's just static. So if you're riding in a group or driving in a group or being on a track, it's a different kind of feel. But in the end, if you're static again, so you're in the pits, you're in the parking lot, and then the social part starts again. So you talk, you share your experiences. I think this is, yeah, that even has the same value as moving with your vehicle. And I'm super grateful for the people I met, and I think it's a very, let's say, um yeah, you connect very fast. So it doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a big company, or you just bought your first classic car for 1,000 euros and you repaired it in the shed. And I think this very democratic approach is what I like. So bringing all these people together, either meeting them at the events of friends, or even being more fortunate to create events yourself where you can put a very personal stamp on it. And yeah, and in the end, it's every month with every car meet and every show and every race, you meet someone new. And yeah, it's very exciting. It's never getting boring. So yeah, and let's see. And we have to adapt. And with electric bikes, as I said, it feels like as a new thing again. So for me, being on an electric bike, it was uh, felt like, okay, maybe being for the first time on the ocean, or your first kiss or something like that. So yeah, so that keeps everything rolling and motoring, I think.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I like that you bring that point up that motoring does connect people across these traditional lines, whether it's economic or cultural or what have you. And I guess if we put forever before motoring, what does that mean to you? Is it really just about continuing this kind of community and as you were just saying before, or yeah, and do you think we can still do that in all these sustainable ways?
Yeah, I'm basically very optimistic. I know that the planet is, yeah, at a bad state, and we definitely have to do something. And I don't know if it's too late, but I'm still optimistic that we will find ways to get together and enjoy the hobby and find ways to stay in touch and not lose ourselves within political issues and sides. And yeah, basically let's all concentrate on the bigger goal, and yeah, find ways along the way, either through engineering or social projects, to stick together.
Yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for talking with us today. It's a lot of really interesting ideas in there. And also for the reload land, that's thanks for putting that together. It's really, I think that's a first beginning of something that's going to be, get more and more interesting. I hope you're going to continue doing it, even though it was a lot of work.
absolutely. I think it has a bright future, and yeah, maybe we will travel across Europe with the festival. Let's see. So I don't want to talk about it too much, but of
Hmm.
course you're invited. First weekend of June in 2024, in Berlin again at Craftwerk, and yeah, maybe we will even open up for some extremely cool electric cars. So
Oh,
let's see.
wow. Great. I look forward to it. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again sometime about e-fuels. But thanks for everything. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your time, for the interest, for promoting, yeah, the whole project, and enjoy Greece.
Bye. I will. Bye.